The past only dominates you because you're still feeding it without realizing it. The past isn't a solid prison, it's a thread you keep holding on to. Let go of the thread and everything collapses. Rumi said, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is wide open?" And the truth is, you remain trapped because you still believe you're the same person who suffered that, who lived that, who carried those wounds, but you are no longer that being. The past only has power because you still identify with the version of yourself that suffered. What are you still holding on to that you should have released long ago? Who would you be right now if you weren't carrying that broken version of yourself? And what do you think will finally happen when you stop serving the past and start serving what you can become? The past is not a memory. It's an identity. A memory is something you remember. An identity is something you become, and that is what destroys you. If you want the past to lose its power over you, do one thing. Stop narrating your story as if it was still real. Because what you narrate, you feed. What you explain, you reinforce. What you relive, you recreate. You're not going to like what I'm about to tell you, and that's exactly why you need to hear it. The past only rules you because in some way you still believe it has authority over your soul. What would happen if, in a single inner movement, the past completely lost the power it has over you? That's exactly what this video will give you. No empty metaphors, no superficial spirituality. Today, you're going to discover the secret strike Rumi revealed only to the most prepared disciples. The inner point where the past stops controlling your emotions, your impulses, your fears, and the narrative that has imprisoned you for years. If you stay until the end, you'll understand not only how to break this prison, but why no one ever told you that the key has always been in your own awakened consciousness. Get ready. Nothing you've lived will be able to dominate you after this. And Rumi, with the silent brutality of the Sufi masters, tells us that the past only remains alive when you feed it with your attention. Today, right here, you're going to understand what it truly means to cut this root and break the influence that has controlled you for years, because the past has no power of its own. The power it uses against you comes from you. And when you do what I'm about to reveal, something inside you will break open, and the story that binds you will lose its power immediately. Not tomorrow, not later, now. Write in the comments, "Nothing from my past rules me," and become a member of the channel right now. You're about to enter a space of transformation that exists nowhere else. Rumi said that the greatest prison of a human being is not invisible chains, but in the invisible attachment to what has already passed. He taught that the past is a shadow that only exists as long as you remain standing in the same light. If you move, the shadow shifts. If you awaken, the shadow disappears. The problem is that you were conditioned to believe that your past is your identity, as if mistakes, traumas, guilt, and failures were a fixed map of your soul. But Rumi turns you inside out and reveals a truth that shatters this myth. You are not what you have lived. You are what you choose to perceive now. The past does not speak. Your memory does. The past does not push you. What pushes you is what you still carry from it in your heart. And when you understand this, its power collapses. Sufism has always pointed to a place you've forgotten. The present is the only field where the soul breathes. When you live trapped in the past, you live outside of yourself. You live looking down a road that has already ended, believing you are still walking it. But the road of the past is an illusion. It no longer exists, yet you insist on walking it inside your mind. That's why Rumi said, "Why do you remain in prison when the door is wide open?" You are not suffering because of the past. You suffer because you continue to carry its marks as if they were part of your body. But they are not. They are old clothes, and you can take them off now. Have you noticed that the past always comes back in the same form? It creates nothing new. It repeats. It recycles. It delivers to you memories with the smell of mold, memories that should have been buried, and you accept them. And when you accept, you repeat along. The mind loves repetition, the soul loves movement. The mind wants to convince you that what has been will determine what will be. The soul wants to remind you that every moment is a door, and if you don't choose to walk through that door, you will continue living in echoes. Echoes that have no real power except the power you lend them every day. Sufism calls you to this confrontation. Either you continue being pulled by ghosts, or you decide to walk among them without bowing. Rumi's method to free yourself from the past is simple but uncomfortable. Observe the past, without letting it define who you are now. He taught that the secret is not to erase memory, but to empty identification. You can remember without suffering. You can look without hurting yourself. You can see the past as you see an old photograph, something that existed but no longer has authority over your life. The key is here. When you stop saying, "This is me," the past loses control. You break the root. You break the point where its energy connects to your soul. And when that connection falls, what held you disappears like dust carried by the wind. Have you noticed that when you think about the past, your body reacts as if you are living it again? This happens because you haven't learned to separate what you lived from who you are. The deepest Sufi teaching says, you are not the pain you felt. You are the consciousness that witnessed it. The more you awaken to this perception, the freer you become. Because past pain cannot touch you if you are not emotionally present in it. The past has no arms. It only grabs you when you return to it mentally. And Rumi said, go to where you are now, because when you return to the present, the past loses the address to reach you. There is something Rumi taught his most advanced disciples. The past only has power when you believe it contains a truth about your worth. But the past knows nothing about who you are now. It only knows who you were, and who you were doesn't even define 1% of what you can become. The past is small, you are vast. The past is static, you are movement. The past is gray, you are flame. But you forgot this. That's why I am reminding you, with the precision only a master would convey to a prepared disciple. Stop asking the past who you are. It doesn't know. It never knew. It only knows who you managed to be with the level of consciousness you had at that moment. You are no longer that person. Sufism says there is a breaking point inside the human heart, a specific moment when you realize that past pain only exists because you have not allowed it to leave. Rumi called this the soul's turning point. It is the moment when you stop chasing answers about what happened and start bringing all your energy to what can happen now. When you do this, a silent force awakens within you, something almost invisible yet powerful, a lightness that depends on nothing external. It is as if your soul says, finally you have returned. And in this return, everything that bound you begins to dissolve. The past tries to control you through 3 strategies: guilt, fear, and repetition. It makes you remember what you did, what was done to you, and what you fear might happen again. But all these strategies only work if you give them attention. If you withdraw your attention, everything falls apart. Because attention is the fuel, attention is the glue, attention is the bridge. When you do what Rumi teaches, observe without identifying, you remove the energy that feeds these 3 forces, and they stop. Like fire without oxygen, like shadow without light, like a wave without wind. Liberation happens not through effort, but through clarity, through an inner shift in how you look at yourself. And the question Rumi would ask you now is simple and devastating. Why continue serving the past if you were born to move? Sufism says that the soul is like a bird. It was made to fly, not to live reliving old storms. And when you finally break the emotional bond the past uses to tie you down, you feel something you may not have felt for years. Space. Space within you. Space to breathe. Space to be. Space to exist without carrying dead weight. And it is in this space that your freedom begins. And when this freedom begins, something inside you awakens with such force that you realize, if the past has lost its authority over me now, what else can lose it? There is a point where you realize something brutal. The past does not chase you. You are the one running into it without noticing. And what Rumi reveals relentlessly is that the only reason the past still has power over you is because there is a place within you that still believes it needs the past to feel like someone. Rumi said that the past only dominates those who have forgotten their own center. And your center, the purest and most indestructible part of your soul, does not exist in yesterday. It exists only in the now. The problem is that you have been trained, conditioned, and shaped to seek in the past explanations for who you are. And this makes you a prisoner, because every time you try to understand yourself through what you've lived, you shrink. You confine yourself to the old size of your consciousness. You fit again into a story that no longer has enough space for what you have become. And this is exactly what cuts your strength. The past diminishes you because you try to enter it with the same soul that has already expanded. It's like trying to wear a skin you have outgrown. The deep teaching of Sufism says that the past only has power while you try to dialogue with it. It's harsh but true. Every time you try to resolve mentally something that has already passed, you reopen doors that should remain closed. The past feeds on mental revisitation. It is like a beast that only lives when you call it. And Rumi taught that the soul does not renew itself by looking backward. It renews itself when you cut the habit of seeking meaning where life no longer exists. While you try to fix what happened, you waste energy that should be used to create what is yet to come. This is how the past weakens you, not because it is strong, but because it drains the energy you give it unknowingly. And here is the key that Rumi only gave to his most prepared disciples. The past only rules you when you react to it. When you feel guilt, it rules. When you feel shame, it rules. When you feel longing for what will never return, it rules. What binds you is not the memories themselves, but the reactions you still produce when they appear. The past is like someone knocking at the door. It only enters if you open it. True liberation happens when the past knocks and you do not react. It knocks and you do not identify. It knocks and you do not bow. It knocks and you remain firm in the now, like a whirling dervish spinning so centered, so present, that nothing can break your axis. This state is what destroys the power of the past immediately. The direct, practical, visceral step. What Rumi truly wanted you to understand is this. When a memory arises, do not think about it. Do not fight it. Do not try to change it. Simply see that it is an image, not a command. What dominates you is not what you remember, but the emotional meaning you give to the memory. When you see the memory as a neutral image, the energy that held you to it dissolves. It is like removing the battery from a monster that seemed alive, but was only a machine. The past loses power when you realize you do not need to obey what you feel when it appears. Sensation is not a command. Feeling is not a destination. Thought is not a prison. And when you realize this, your soul begins to reclaim internal territory. Rumi always said that the soul is a flame that expands when you place yourself in the now. The past is ice. It chills, it freezes, it halts the movement of your life force. And the only gesture that melts this ice is presence. Not presence as a spiritual concept, but presence as an act. Feeling your body now, breathing now, perceiving your existence now. Because when you return to the now, the past no longer has anywhere to hold on. It slips. It loses grip. It loses space. It loses reason. It loses power. It is not a struggle. It is dissolution, and dissolution is silent, yet devastating to everything that dragged you backward. And perhaps you've never noticed, but there is another truth. The past is not just something that happened, it is an emotional structure within you that activates when you feel small. And what Rumi wants you to do, with strength and courage, is to break this structure. How? By stopping seeing yourself as someone who needs to carry old stories to justify your existence. When you abandon the narrative that traps you, you abandon the power the past had over your identity. Without an identity based on the past, there is no force the past can use against you. You dismantle the internal mechanism. You remove the poison. You exit the invisible cycle. Now imagine this. The past trying to access you, but finding an internal space so clean, so present, so aware, that there is no longer a single point for it to grasp. This is what begins to happen when you do what Rumi teaches. The past tries to enter and finds doors blocked by clarity. It tries to pull you and finds no emotion available to be used as a rope. It tries to frighten, and you look with lucidity, not fear. From this point, the past ceases to be an enemy and becomes merely a record, a file, not a tyrant. And when this happens, you experience a sensation you may never have truly felt before. You are no longer controlled, you are free. And this freedom ignites something within you that grows, that expands, revealing something even deeper about what it truly means to live outside the prison of the past. And when this revelation begins, another question arises, like a portal you have not yet crossed, but that is already opening before you now. What is the next layer of the past you need to break? And what happens to you when it finally falls? There is something Rumi knew, and almost no one notices, about why the past still dominates your life. The past doesn't trap you through memories. It traps you through the way you see yourself when the memories arise. The prison is not in the story. It is in the identity you assume when it appears. The deepest point of Sufism regarding liberation from the past is this: the past only rules you when you believe you are still the same you who lived it. And this is such a destructive illusion that Rumi called it the greatest deception of the human soul. The you that exists now has absolutely nothing to do with the you who lived the past. The consciousness you have today did not exist back then. The level of perception you have now did not exist back then. The understanding you carry today did not exist back then. So why do you insist on accepting a pain that was created by someone who no longer exists? This is the cruelest trick of the past. It convinces you that you are still the same person, so it can continue to command you. The moment you break this identification, the past collapses. And here is the point almost no one dares to face. The past uses your ignorance against you. Not the ignorance of not knowing, but the ignorance of not perceiving that you have changed. Because while you try to resolve an old pain with who you are now, you forget one thing: that pain was not created by you. It was created by an old, limited, fragmented, and lost version of you. You are trying to put out a fire that has already ended. The past has no fire. It is you who lights the flames in your memories. Rumi said that the awakened soul is like water poured over old embers. The fire goes out instantly because there is nothing left to sustain it. This is the point that destroys the power of the past, when you see that there is no longer someone inside you to suffer it again. And there is a Sufi practice that cuts the power of the past like a blade, seeing the memory as if it happened to someone else. And this is not a metaphor, it is literal. Because it happened. The you of today is a different human being, a different consciousness, a different level, a different soul. The memory belongs to a dead self, and you are still carrying its corpse inside you. When a memory arises, you do this. You observe it as if you are seeing a distant person, someone who is no longer you going through it. You do not analyze, you do not comment, you do not embrace, you do not reject. You simply see. By doing this, you place spiritual distance between your current consciousness and the old record. This distance is what Sufism calls breaking the spell. The spell of the past is sustained by the fusion between you and the memory. When you separate, the spell breaks. And it is precisely at this point that something brutal happens. You realize that the past never had any power. The power came from the fact that you believed you were still inside the story. But when you reposition yourself spiritually, when you claim the self of now, the past becomes fragile. It becomes small. It becomes harmless. Its strength evaporates because its strength was never its own. It was borrowed. It was granted. It was given by you. And Rumi said, when you return to yourself, everything that pursued you loses its way. The past stops finding you because it no longer recognizes who you are. It tries to reach you, but you no longer reside in the same inner place. And there is something even deeper, which most people never realize. The past does not trap you because of the pain. It traps you because you are still trying to understand why the pain happened. It is this search, this attempt to find meaning, that chains you. Because while you seek significance, you emotionally return to the experience. Sufism teaches the opposite. You are freed when you stop asking the past for answers. It has none. It only has records. Answers exist only in the now, because only in the now does living consciousness exist. The moment you realize you no longer need answers, the pain dissolves. The past loses the justification it used to keep pulling you in. Rumi said that the past is like a broken mirror. If you continue trying to see your identity in that mirror, you will hurt yourself. You will cut your soul into pieces, because the mirror does not show what you are. It only shows fragments of what once was. And yet you insist on looking. What I want you to understand now is this: the mirror is not the problem. The problem is the habit of looking. The power of the past is in that habit. The day you stop, everything collapses. The mirror becomes just glass. The story becomes just memory. The pain becomes just a record. And none of this has real power when you do not bow before it. And there is a question Rumi would place before you now, with the precision of a master who wants to remove the last grain of illusion from your soul. If you truly were no longer the person who lived that experience, What exactly would prevent the past from disappearing completely from your life? Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters, but you do not let the light in because you keep picking at the points every day, repeating the same emotional disaster, reliving the injustice as if it were happening now. And here is the central, direct, surgical, aggressive point. The past does not drain your energy. You are the one who gives it to it voluntarily. Do this. Remove the emotion from the memory. Do not erase the memory. That is impossible. But cut the fuel. Because a memory without emotion is just a dead file, and dead files do not control decisions, sabotage relationships, or trap the mind. How do you remove the emotion? Rumi answers without mercy. Release everything that is not you, and what is not you, what hurts you, what diminishes you, what paralyzes you, what makes you spin in circles. Do you want the past to die then? Stop protecting it. Stop justifying it. Stop defining yourself by it. Because no one hurts you as much as the story you insist on repeating to yourself. Now I'll give you the most direct blow of all. You do not suffer because of the past. You suffer because of your attachment to the character you played in the past. And as long as you do not abandon that character, the past will continue controlling everything. Your triggers, your fears, your choices, your loves, and your failures. Rumi said, when the soul is ready, everything arrives. But nothing arrives while you are still carrying what should have already been buried. The soul cannot advance with excess baggage. And you know exactly which baggage I'm talking about. Do you want a real practice without bullshit, without empty philosophy? Do this. Every time the memory comes up, do not ask, why did this happen to me? Ask, why do I still let this govern me? This question breaks the spell. This question pulls you into the present. This question destroys the old identity. This is how you empty the past until it has no power at all. And now I ask you, answer with brutal honesty. What are you still holding on to that you should have already released? Who would you be now if you were not carrying this broken version of yourself? And what do you think will happen when you finally stop serving the past and start serving what you can become? Listen with your whole soul now, because this is direct, surgical, and without anesthesia. The past continues to dominate you only because you maintain an invisible pact with it. Rumi said, "Yesterday I was clever and wanted to change the world. Today I am wise and I am changing myself." And here is the brutal truth. The past controls you because you still act as if you belong to it. Every time you react like before, think like before, fear like before, you reaffirm that contract with pain. And here comes the key that destroys the power of the past immediately. You need to stop obeying the reactions that were programmed by it. This is the root. This is the main artery. Cut this artery, and the past dies from hemorrhage. I'm not talking about accepting the past that is weak, superficial, and palliative. I'm talking about something much more radical, deprogramming your automatic response. The past only has power because you have reacted the same way for years. You see the same trigger, feel the same tension, think the same story, repeat the same pattern. It's an old, predictable, automatic choreography. The past doesn't need to attack you. You self-attack by repeating the same dance. Rumi would show this in the simplest way possible. You become what you love, and you, without realizing, have learned to love your wounds, to nurture your traumas, to recognize yourself through pain. And as long as that exists, the past possesses you like a spirit that was never expelled. So here is the practical, violent, direct instruction. Stop reacting as the person the past created. Reaction is what binds you. Observation is what frees you. The next time the old trigger comes, and it will come, you do not react. You do not fall. You do not interpret. You do not negotiate with the memory. You simply do one thing. You break the cycle. This interruption is the fatal strike. It is what cuts off the oxygen from the past. It is what burns the pact in the fire of consciousness. The past hates it when you observe instead of react, because it lives in reaction. It finds its nourishment in emotional response. It is in the repeated pattern that it is reborn. Without reaction, the past rots. Without reaction, the past loses shape. Without reaction, the past becomes smoke. And now, I need to ask you something that will pierce your soul like a hot iron. How many times a day do you still react like the version that tried to survive what it lived? Because as long as this version lives within you, the past will continue to govern your present. Rumi said, Be like the tree that, even wounded, continues to grow toward the sky. But you continue growing toward memories. You continue directing your energy toward what should have already been buried. And every time you react the same, it's as if you are watering this dead tree. So answer me now with brutal honesty. Are you willing to stop reacting as the person the past shaped? Are you ready to become someone the past no longer recognizes? Because when you do this, exactly this, the past loses power not gradually, but all at once. Become a member and access a space where Rumi's wisdom is not just heard, it is lived. Step into the inner circle and awaken with depth. Notice how, by opening space within yourself, the power of the past begins to dissolve like mist before the sun. What once seemed indestructible now reveals itself as fragile in the face of your awakened presence. The soul that walks in awareness is not dragged by old memories. It moves with the freshness of the present moment. And the more you abandon conditioned reflections, the more the past loses the fingers with which it tried to hold you. And if something within you truly shifted, a different silence, an expansion in the chest, a subtle inner movement, then let this be recorded as a vibrational seal. Comment: the breath of the beloved has freed me. These words are not just words. They are a mystical key that anchors the decision to break the influence of the past and walk with a cleansed soul, just as Rumi taught. And if this path called to you today, allow that flame to stay alive. Subscribe as one who crosses a sacred portal, not out of habit, but out of recognition. Because there are spaces that are not just channels, they are refuges, invisible gardens where the soul finds what it has always sought. And may this breath continue, where silence touches the beloved whispers.